Okay, not sure how I want to do this. It's probably just gonna be super informal. Market update thoughts. This is the beginning of 2025, and it's been a crazy 5 years for games, especially after COVID. So I just want to like document and kind of like tap into what the market's looking like right now. I'm probably gonna have price charting and some maybe eBay sold or eBay buyable, like eBay sold or eBay purchasable listings. So hopefully some like relevant information to give you an idea of stuff. And then I have my tier list over here. Just kind of price gauging in USD. What are we working with? What's crazy? What's doable? This feels like a pretty okay budget. Like most people, you're spending like something like max like 75. I don't know. This video isn't meant to sway your opinion, make you want to buy anything. This is just observations, what I've seen change, what I will not buy personally. My opinions are on my own. You gotta do what you gotta do. If I say something wrong, please correct me. There's probably gonna be some stuff that I don't understand. I don't have a GameCube or any of that stuff, but I've heard about it. And before all else, the first thing I wanted to list was the loopy DS capture cards. If you're unfamiliar, they basically output audio and video through USB. This is pretty standard for a lot of shiny hunters. I forgot to mention emulation as a pretty viable option. We're going to say a lot of stuff that costs a lot of money. So if you don't have money, just emulate. And I really hope emulation becomes more standard. It is a lot cheaper. Free almost. It's crazy. So loopy DS capture cards, the next cheapest thing for some of this stuff. But basically we're going to be putting this over here, depending on how you go about it. The capture cards themselves can cost. It depends on how much work you're willing to put in. If you're waiting the weeks, you can send in your DS, which shouldn't cost a crazy amount. But then the installation service is like 100. Installation service is like 90, 100, something like that. But overall, it should probably cost you 100 to 200. And then if you're just buying it straight up, it's going to be like 200. So, okay, I've properly split it. Yeah, because I feel like the $50 would be good here. Okay, yeah, bang. So, yeah, this will be like a little bit more, but depending on how much you're willing to wait, you know, you got time. I would just send in one of these. It's probably fine. And to follow that up, we have the 3DS capture cards, which are a little insane right now. I'm not going to lie. If it were me personally, I would not be buying those straight up off of eBay. They're a little gross. So we're going to put these pre-bought ones off of eBay over here. Kind of disgusting. But straight up, your new Nintendo 3DS XLs are probably looking like anywhere from like 175 to 225-ish. It depends. Japanese ones, they capture the same. Like you can send them in the loopy all the same. That'll be the LL. The XL is the US one, and then European ones are the same. So you gotta do what you gotta do. Also Korean ones, it doesn't really matter. But personally, if it were me, I would be sending in a Japanese console to loopy, have him install it. Unless you have a middleman that's willing to do that soldering work for you, it's a lot of work. I would probably just send in a new Nintendo 3DS XL or LL, which would be like whatever 150 if I'm saving. Sending that into loopy, getting it back. So that's probably like 350. Up to 350 to 400 I would expect to spend on a 3DS capture card installation service myself, but I would not be buying those off of eBay. That's just how that goes. And then to follow it up, I don't have all the DS consoles on here, but I did want to include the DS Lite because it is a really popular one. Good for not capturing live reactions and stuff. So we're gonna list that over here. It's pretty much the same price as these. It can fluctuate, but in general, like mid, like you can get it for like $60 probably. Like I wouldn't stress too much. The thing that I didn't include on this playlist was Game Boy Advanced, because I know those are kind of popular, especially with controller mods. I don't dabble. I don't really know, but that's another option if you really want to go crazy about it. Something I included, but I don't know a ton about, are GameCubes. Okay, here we go. And yeah, GameCubes, from what I understand, they kind of range based on region and color and rarity. but in general, you can expect to spend like 90 to 115 on it or something like that. So I'm just gonna put it over here, and all the accessories are what really kind of jacks it up. So here's our wave bird. That's gonna be I think you only need one receiver per every controller, and controllers a little cheaper. It's the receivers that cost a little bit. So putting that here for, you know, controller and a receiver seems pretty, like, that seems good. And here's that Game Boy player, a little over $50. So like trying to hunt on GameCube, it's like authentic, and you probably need to do some image refurb. Like you got to make your image look crisp, which I think there's some more capture card stuff you have to do. But in general, GameCubes are really cool to hunt on. You don't have to do anything if you have the wave bird receivers. That's pretty cool. So I'm gonna be back. I actually have to pick up a game piece. Okay, I'm back. Not sure what I left off on, but yeah, GameCube, bit of a, not an upgrade, I guess. But it's definitely a way you can play your games through capture. That's a pretty great way. Altogether, it kind of comes out to the same price as the DS capture card. You're really looking to only play Game Boy games, but I'll cover all the Pokemon games in a little bit. We're gonna get there. I also have GameCube games. Sorry, I included the GameCube games that people like to shiny hunt to. So we'll get a good mix of games. Okay, and next up, most important probably for Game Boy hunting, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color hunting. Your Game Boy Operator. I don't personally own one of these, and I actually don't currently have a way of backing up any of my Game Boy games. So I've been told that this is pretty great. I've had multiple people I know buy many of them because you can multi-hunt. And from what I understand, it doesn't physically run the game, but it runs the software with the save file. But the main thing that you get away from the games is that you can back up and change and edit and save over your save file on these cartridges, which is a pretty great tool, gotta say. Like I said, I personally don't have one of these. I might have one in the future, but pricing it $50 about is like pretty phenomenal. Yeah, this is like I'll put it at the bottom of this one. It's pretty cheap to have such a useful tool be that readily available. From what I understand, they've been out of stock and in stock before. And yeah, I forgot to mention earlier, Loopy. Part of Loopy's whole thing is that when he's out of stock, it can get kind of crazy prices. But he's in stock for both DS and 3DS right now. Game Boy Operator's in stock. What I'm going to talk about next is in stock as well. But demand really matters for some of these prices for sure. Kind of a weird market. But yeah, Game Boy Operator, really good. Can capture, I believe, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games. So I've heard good things. Yeah. Oh yeah, and the thing I wanted to talk about next was the capture card services. So there are services for EU stuff that you can get for your capture card, and definitely ranges. So I guess it depends on how you look at it. But these services can be anywhere from 100 to 150. Like it can go up and down, depending on what you're getting from these European services. This is for European buyers pretty much. But in general, they can really add up, and they go a lot over. It's kind of nice for us American sellers to just have Loopy to go to. It's pretty convenient. But because I believe Merki is this person. Merki's a reseller of Loopy's products, so he will be the one reselling that and profiting a lot. So with that, we also have there's those capture cards. Oh, these are some of the cheaper stuff, I guess. This is like the these are like the battery, like the battery replacements and stuff. A lot of these are like on the cheaper end in euros. Like those are just like some like if you want to like tweak your battery or something, or your ports, right? Your like modifications and stuff. I think like in their shoulder button repair, cables. Yeah, some of those are on the cheaper side. But in general, like modifications are usually worth it, especially if the system's already right. So I think it's always worth that extra buck to invest in your system long term. Definitely nothing wrong with that. There's the other main thing that Merki does is those capture card services, and some of those being a little crazy. Yeah, for Europeans, it's just a lot. So if you are a European looking to do DS, 3DS capture cards, I'm not telling you to reconsider, but at the same time, it's like yeah, man, up to 250 for a new 3DS XL, up to 150 for a classic DS. This is for the send-in service. Yeah, this is like pretty baseline for European stuff. There's also a Melon DS from what I know, and there's likely other European sellers, but this is like I feel pretty standard. Like loopy cards are pretty standard for shiny hunting setups and stuff. There's always upgrades and stuff you can do. Katsukity cards not the same quality as loopy. I don't know. I will gas up loopy every day. So that's kind of why I have that on this list. I don't know too much about Katsukity cards and stuff. Honestly, I just know it's loopy's highest quality. Yeah, I'm a loopy rider, I guess, for real. Shadow rider, ice rider, nah, bro. I'm on loopy. So there's that. Oh, up next, what I had was inside gadgets. So inside gadgets being really important for controller modding, which is really important now if you don't want to like what if you don't want to get arthritis for real. So if you're doing this on multiple systems, it turns out to be really worth it for somebody that hunts on 6. Sometimes I'm gonna be honest, yeah, my hands hurt. So sometimes it's worth it. This is something you're into. Definitely check out Inside Gadgets. I'll link it. But I've heard great things. It sounds like it works out pretty well for those with hand issues and hand cramps, or people that don't, but also just like it. So you may have to find middlemen to do that work for you, where it might creep up into the 50 per console type of mod. But in general, the parts aren't too crazy. So it's kind of on the nicer end of things for sure. So just another upgrade if you're thinking about doing that. So then next up, what I had, the Wii is like kind of a substitute for a GameCube, from what I understand. You can hunt Battle Revolution on it too, like not too bad. And the Wii's are actually on the cheaper end as well. Probably like high 40s, low 50s. Like I wouldn't pay more than like $60 for a Wii straight up. Japanese are even cheaper. Same with GameCube. Like from what I understand, you can just like run the games the same. There's probably region locks on them that you can remove. I'm not the most knowledgeable about this stuff, but in general, like it's pretty worth it. So I wouldn't have the highest bar for some of these because it's like on the cheaper end. But yeah, it seems pretty nice. I'll talk about Battle Revolution too. Ooh, Game Boy player discs. I guess I'll just group that in with these. Yeah, Game Boy. So there's a lot of stuff you need for a Game Boy if you're trying to like deck it out. You got the system, the Wavebird, the receiver, the player, the disc. Yeah, it's starting to look like Loopy's day, bro. But there's probably cheaper ways to go about it. I'm not the most knowledgeable. There's probably other setups for Gen 3 people on YouTube that I can like link that instead if I find some. But yeah, just some options. But yeah, that's most of the like console handheld stuff that I had. So that's what you're playing it on. Also, emulator, completely free for whatever I'm about to talk about. Just want to throw that out there for people who want to do that authentic cartridge gaming, which I personally like the most. And the thing about Loopy is that I'll always plug is that his repairs are most of the time free. If you're doing replacement parts, he won't make you pay for the labor. You just send in the parts with your system, and like, here's this replacement DS shell that I got for a capture card. It works great. I've been using it for years, and it was free of charge. I just pay for the parts. Loopy just does that. He's that kind of person. Really quality stuff, quality care. But not to gas him up too much, I'm just a Loopy enjoyer. And then I guess extending your system's life, putting the controller mod on that's another layer you can go. All right, Yap Sesh aside, I'll probably talk on that later. The next thing I want to talk about is Pokemon games. You came here to listen to Shiny Hunting Market. This is why you're here, right? Your emeralds, your crystals, your platinums. We're gonna get to it. Black 2, white 2s, heartgold, soulsilvers. We're gonna get to it. But yeah, we're just gonna start slow. Pokemon Red. Okay, first one, Pokemon Red. These are the ones I'll have the game icons for and stuff. Red and Blue, I guess I'll just group together. You typically just see around like $50. maybe like a little bit more, $60, right? Like nothing insane. On the more reasonable side for sure. These really haven't budged for a while. I'm honestly surprised yellow is cheaper, but we'll talk about that in a second. Where are these? Here we go. Yeah, on the cheaper end. Not too crazy about $60. Pretty reasonable. We're just gonna put it. We're gonna keep the game separate. So yeah, like less than $100. Pretty nice. They were like the most sold game of all time for Pokemon, right? Or everything, I think. So yeah, like on the cheaper end, they're a little bit more common for sure. But yeah, overall not too crazy. Red and blue, you know, staying true. I feel like it's been like that for a while. COVID bumped a few of these up, but yeah, on the more reasonable side, if you want to do some ace hunts are really cool. Those ones are popping up. The shiny indicator patch ones are really cool. Yeah, Gen 1 hunting. Definitely some stuff, some improvements this past year for sure. And then Pokemon Yellow. Honestly, yeah, I lied. Actually, Pokemon Yellow about the same price. Yeah, even though it's a special version, it's about the same price. Kind of nice. We take that. Gen 1ers, ball knowers, kind of cheap. That's pretty good. We like that for the hobby. And then next up, tapping into the Game Boy Color. Some of these games are reasonable. Some of these games are insane. So playing these on the Game Boy Operator, you're looking to spend probably like $100 total, like 110, depends. But that's a pretty cool setup right there, honestly. So then Pokemon Gold and Silver. Yeah, about the same for these as they were for Red and Blue, Red, Blue, Yellow. Like, not a ton changed. I don't like they sold a ton of them, and I guess they're still common enough to where they're pretty reasonably cheap. Really pretty cards. I don't like the Japanese cards as much because they're not like these ones are just more colorful, I guess. But what is more colorful for sure is the Pokemon Crystal. Is it maybe an upgrade for some hunts? Like, is it imperative that you have this cartridge? No. Does it match up to Gold and Silver in price? Absolutely not. What are we doing? Why is it that high? I cannot believe the just the price charting on this thing. Like, I just remember seeing it. I have just this one. Like, I don't play my Gen 1 copy, my Gen 2 copy at all. I just have these two. And the one that I have is no label. Like, it got ripped off, unfortunately. But, like, dude, I like the fact that these prices are just nasty. Like, why would anyone... I guess it's, like, the definitive version, and it's, like, they have animations and stuff. But, like, man, you gotta be honest with yourself. Like, why would you need this much? This is just an emulation substitute easily. Like, basically almost dipping into that range where it's like so much. Really a lot. I wouldn't buy one of these. The only reason I have that one is because I traded up for it and it was convenient, and I got haggled it down because of the label. I don't know why you would get Crystal unless you're a Gen 2er. I personally am not, nor do I really care about getting it. I don't tend to get copies that I'm not like crazy about. I'm a Gen 5er. I'll get tons of Gen 5 copies. But some of them are cheaper that I don't super care about, so I'm probably going to start looking out for some of these, honestly. But yeah, that was Game Boy Color era again. Game Boy Operator usable. Kind of nice, but everything for a little bit is going to be on the Loopy DS capture card. Your Gen 3, your Gen 4, your Gen 5. The main, I want to say main shiny hunting, what we care about, like... This is what you pull out the Game Boy Advance for. Your GameCubes, Gen 3, I feel like is like 50% of shiny hunting. People fuck with Gen 3. I totally understand. It's a great generation. So to start us off, we got Firered, leafgreen, and then I'll talk about Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald after. But like, dude, what is going on with Firered, leafgreen, bro? These were not that much a few years ago. This is insane. They're like 110, 120. Like, if we're being super reasonable, it's kind of worth it. Firered leafgreen has amazing hunting stuff. So many targets, especially with Sevi Islands and everything. Like, tons of great hunts you can do. Legendaries galore. But, like, man, it's once it starts creeping over 100, it's like... Dang, I should have the tier list like flipped because green does not mean go, bro. That is a lot. I'm not paying that much for these games anymore. I'd maybe play like 75 if I was feeling crazy. I just don't care that much about Gen 3 to pay this much. I mean, if you're prepping for Safari Week, sure. I'm not crazy. Okay, so low-key, I might start yapping more about these games than anything else so far. Gen 3 through Gen 5, it's like main hunting games. I feel like I know the most about them. This is just where we're going to go from there. So next up, we got leafgreen. Or leafgreen, I guess I can loop in with Firered. Basically same price, 120, 115, 120. I would look for him under 100, but that's just me. Yeah, kind of nasty, especially with the growth over the years. A little gross. Next up, ruby and sapphire. Also great for Safari Week. I'm sure some of y'all are already prepping for that. We're going to talk about other language stuff later. I forgot to mention. But as far as English versions go, these ones also kind of bumped it up a little bit. This is where batteries are kind of important. Ruby, sapphire, emerald. Whether or not you buy it with a battery kind of matters. If you have a middleman to do that battery soldering for you, great. Maybe $10 a cartridge with like a replaceable thing. You do that yourself. Never have to do it again. Nice. But in general, just have somebody you know that does that. If you don't want to do it yourself, maybe $10 a cartridge. You're thinking to pay extra if it's if it's no battery. So low battery, but yeah, in general, I don't think it really matters. I have like three copies of Sapphire with low battery, and I just don't hunt on them. If you do hunt on them, though, you probably will want the battery thing on it. If you probably will want the battery replaced on it, so just consider that when you're buying it with low battery. It might be a little cheaper. I wouldn't pay full for one with a low battery, but yeah, just something to think about. And then to follow that up, bro. I guess here let's put on the tier list first. Here we go. It is on the little bit of the pricier side, but as far as Gen 3 goes, these are great. And yeah, for retro, it's like right in the middle from Game Boy to Game Boy Advance. We take those, so like a little bit less than 100. But if you're bulking some of these, you might want to go the different language route. I'll talk about that later. But if you're just getting like one or two, sure, yeah, it seems fair. Unless you're doing Emerald. Straight to that. I am not putting it in 200 because we are not going down. Emerald will only go up. It has only been going up. It is gross. Why are we paying so much for something that is such a little difference from Ruby Sapphire? I will never know. And for shiny hunters, the RNG is broken. Like, you can fix it and you can do your painting shit and whatever. Like, but that's like, are we being real? Like, do you really care that much that you need to pay $150 more, $125 more for a cartridge that's a little prettier, sure, but ultimately accomplishes the same goals? If you want to hunt the starters, you do Ruby Sapphire, absolutely. If you want to do the legendaries, you do Ruby Sapphire. If you want to do most of Safari Zone, you do Ruby Sapphire. If you want the Johto Pokemon, you do Emerald, sure. This is just the popular hunts, like, in general, Ruby Sapphire is the way to go. Ralts, I feel like a lot of DTQs go through Ruby Sapphire route. I don't know why we're still paying this much for this cartridge. I think it's the resellers making it go this high. It's a little nasty. I'm never buying a cartridge that I'm not going to play for over $100. $200 for this? I remember when I used this to trade in for one of my systems. I was like, there's no way like a system can be less than a game. And I was right. This is still like what, 50, 100 more, but like it basically covered the trade in itself. Like, I don't touch my Gen 3 copies that much, so I'm always cool with upgrading for something I use more and lose a little bit of value. But like, man, the fact that Emerald copy covered most of the console in itself is just nasty. I don't know what to say about that. I don't know what you're doing if you're still buying English Emeralds in 2024 for 90% market value or higher. I would be looking for 150 or less just because I'm a cheapskate. But we'll talk about Japanese and stuff later. And then even then, Japanese is like kind of nasty. But we'll talk about it later. Yeah, Emerald's gross. Some unique hunts, but in general, Ruby Sapphire has most of them. You're not missing out. Next up, God, that was a really good rant. Oh, I guess to take a turn for a little bit before Gen 4, we can talk about the GameCube games. We got Colloseum and XD. Like, bro, I don't know what. I mean, there are really cool hunts. Shadow Pokemon, Awesome. I'm not dogging y'all on that. Really, really cool stuff. Really cool hunts. Are you going to get all the GameCube stuff and then go through all those really slow hunts? That's up to you. Me personally, I'm not paying that much for the cartridge worth so little. In my heart. In my heart. I'll gas up GameCube game. I haven't played these. I guess it's on like the high borderline. Like that's crazy. I don't know why we're paying that much for these. I guess they're just low population. I'm not touching Pokemon box. You can't shiny hunt Pokemon box. You can do the eggs. No, I'm not putting this on that list. Just gross. Maybe Japanese is valid for some of you, sure, but like GameCube games are scary. I don't know if I want a GameCube at all. I'm a Gen 5er, so personally I don't really care. In general, like loopy DS and 3DS covers the main Gen 3 through Gen 5 era. You're touching most of the bases. You're hitting most of the bases, right? Like you can't really go wrong with DS, 3DS. But if you want this extra mile, you go these extra shiny hunts. You're getting this GameCube. You're coughing up the extra bit. Look at the Japanese ones. I believe they're cheaper. Yeah, kind of gross. So yeah, for English, I don't even know why they're on this list. Why did I include those? That's about all I had to say for that. Next up, Gen 4. Woo! Gen 4, at least until heartgold, soulsilver. Woo! And platinum. Woo! Yes, we love diamond and pearl. Not as many hunts as platinum, but there are a really good selection, and these games have stayed tried and true for the longest. They are under $50. You can haggle for 30. Like, dude, these games are solid. This is retail from 2006 games for loose copies that you're paying for. It accomplishes most of the same stuff as platinum. Some hunts are faster. You do the starters are faster in platinum, but ultimately it's basically the same. And they still recapture the same magic. It's most of the hunts. Giratina's doesn't get its origin form, but it's fine, bro. It's fine. Diamond and Pearl are great. Yeah, they're cheap. They're on the cheaper end. This is the first game we've put so far under $50. Like for most of the time, like what you're expecting to pay is under 50. That is that game, and I really should have more copies of this game because they are so much are available, and they're on the cheaper end. So if you're multi-hunting these, that's gas. If you're doing Gen 4 targets, bang. You got your shaman, like you got all your legendaries and mythicals you can hunt, a bunch of like repel tricks you can do, great hunts, cheap games. We like that. We love Diamond and Pearl. Surprised I feel like more insert hunts should be done, like ones when you have a Gen 3 card inserted. I hope more of those get done. Really, really cool hunts. But then to follow it up, and I feel like this price is basically justified. You got platinum, and I remember I might sell one to a friend in a little bit, but like I remember looking at it, it was $10 less, like 2 months ago, bro. Why is it so much, man? Why are we paying so much for a cartridge that basically is the same? It's like the definitive version, and there's some better hunts, sure. But like at the end of the day, it's basically Diamond and Pearl with some cooler hunts on it. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not paying that much. If it were me, I'm paying $75. Same with Firered, leafgreen. I'm paying like $75 max for one. Basically to sit on. I don't even play these games. But in general, not my expertise, not my circus, not my monkeys. You're doing what you got to do. If you want to play Gen 4, it's probably just Diamond and Pearl. You can get 2 for the price of 1 in English. It's crazy. But I'll talk about Japanese later. Ultimately, if price isn't an issue, Platinum's like okay right now. Could drop less than 100 on it. You should be okay. Yeah, cool. One that I forgot to actually include I don't know how I forgot to include these in the main part of the tier list, but heartgold and soulsilver, bro. What are we doing? This is 2025, and we're paying so much for games that, like, ultimately they have the best hunts, and maybe they didn't sell as much as some of the other DS games and all like the other Pokemon games in general, but like, man, these games have gone up so much. 2018, I bought a copy from GameStop for $40. It's the same copy, and it's worth $100 more. Like, what are we doing? These cartridges, justified prices, maybe, for what kind of hunts they can do and like the peak that they are. But at the end of the day, are you really paying like a few $100 if you want a multi-hunt on these? Heartgold, soulsilver starters, I would always recommend them to new hunters. Do it on emulator. Do it on emulator. Don't look at Japanese prices. Don't look at English prices. Just do it on emulator. Like, we'll talk about Japanese later. It's a bit of an alternative, but even then, like, they're a little crazy. So just hear me out. Like, yeah, emulator. Emulator is a great way to go for Heartgold, soulsilver starters if you're starting. Do not touch English copies. Insane. Just bad shit. Crazy. I wouldn't touch these with a 10-foot pole. Maybe I would drop 100 on them. I dropped $80 on one last summer. I dropped 80 on a Heartgold last summer, and it was like 120 then. I don't even know how I got it at that, bro. There's this dealer that I deal with. I give him my systems for his games at basically full value both ways, which it kind of ends up being kind of nice for me because he mods them, he resells them. I just collect the games, and ultimately it usually ends up both of our favors. He sells stuff, I keep the games, and I sit on them, and I usually play them for Gen 5. I've gotten a few copies. But, like, I don't know why. These ones are so crazy. I wouldn't... Yeah, these ones would be crazy to try. These are, like, you could get a Nintendo Switch for the same price that you get for a Heartgold. And that's crazy to me. It's kind of partially because of the Switch 2 demand. Like, people are selling their Switches right now. I'll talk about that later. But, yeah, that's crazy stuff. You know what? I might as well just talk about that now while I remember. I have Switch Lite, and OLED. Currently, it's somewhere on here. Yeah, I'll talk about this real quick. I don't know why I forgot to put it on there. Switches, I believe, are on the up and up. People are going to be getting rid of these things in preparation for the Switch 2. So if you're thinking about getting a Switch, now is the time. Shoot out low balls. You're going to hit one, especially your like main city area of the United States. Send out those 75s, send out those 100s if you're feeling crazy. People will take those. Eventually, as we get closer to the Switch 2, people are going to want to upgrade. Now is the great time to look at it. And then Switch Lites. Oh my goodness. Like, you can get those for 80, 75, 80 right now. And once that Switch 2 comes out, I'm telling you, $50, 50 per. You can get those. If you find the right seller, like Switch 2 is going to make these go down. That's just how it goes. OLED, currently, it's a little bit pricier. That's okay. It's a better console. I regret buying mine at $240 last summer, honestly. But yeah, it's had a great run. 7 years from 2017 to 2024, basically. 2025, 8 years, sure. But now it's not the main console. It's gonna start phasing out a little bit. It's basically the Wii U of the Switch era. Like, it just tanked. Switch is better. Now it's being outclassed by something that's backwards compatible. We love that. But we, as shiny hunters, if we want these systems, we also love the old ones going down. So I'm going to put this next to these guys and this over here, yep. And yeah, these are great prices. Look for Switch OLEDs, Switch Lites, and Switches. I am personally expecting to pay $75 for a Switch, $50 for a Switch Lite. $100 for an OLED would be crazy, but probably more like $125 is more reasonable. These are good systems. They play a lot of great Pokemon games. Arceus, Sword Shield, Scarlet Violet, some other ones too, but like, we'll talk about that later. Switches are great. They're great for hunting on. And look for them. Look for them in the next few months. These are great times to buy because people are wanting to sell. This is like the most sold system of Nintendo, right? Like, Switches are insane. They sold insane. I don't know. They probably didn't outsell the DS. They sold crazy. And since they sold crazy, they're going to be selling like crazy. And since they were bought crazy, they're going to be sold crazy, right? So, yeah. I'm looking for a 50 Lite, 75 Switch, and then like 125 OLED. Maybe 100 OLED would be crazy. I'll keep y'all posted. We'll see. But this is a great time to buy Switch stuff. I'm gonna preach it every day of the week. It's not even lowballing. Like, I feel like this is reasonable in the next few months as the Switch 2 comes up. Look for them under 100. I wish you the best of luck in finding them. I think it's very doable. Yeah. So that's all I had to say about Gen 4 and the Switches. I will talk about everything else later. Sorry for the out of order stuff. Next up is what I care the most about personally. My heart, my soul, my Gen 5. I could yap about it for so long. These cartridges went from they went from 50 to 100. The liberals, they're expanding the market. No, but in reality, going from like a little bit cheaper before COVID to like basically 50 for a while was really nice. I love buying these cartridges at 50. Now they're like 70, 75, maybe borderline $80 copies. So I'm not paying those. I will be looking for deals on those. But yeah, I guess it can go in like 75. We're going to put it at the end of 75. They're not the cheapest anymore. We're talking about the other languages later. But dude, Gen 5's the best. You have so many cool hunts. It's mainly Gen 5 Pokemon. But once you get to the post game, you got your swarms. You got your double grasses. Like, you can't beat double grass, bro. Gen 5 undefeated for double grass. It's its characteristic hunt, man. Like, there's so many cool hunts you can do. Is it worth the $70 a cartridge right now? Maybe not. We'll talk about other languages. But I'll stand on buying them for 50 a piece. I use these cartridges. I like, these are they're good. Gen 5's great. There's great hunts on these. I'm gonna gas this up every day of the week. It's unfortunate, like, for me, seeing them go up by like $25 in the last few years is unfortunate. But I'll stay buying them at reasonable prices personally. I'll always look for trade ups. I'm down with that. Now on the other, like, Black and White, great games, great to pick up under 100. On the other hand, Black 2 and White 2, it hurts my soul to see these go up as much as they do. Black 2, White 2, dude, I love them. They're the best. They're the best Pokemon game. Most people would agree. I feel like that's like a good 15-20% of people would agree with me that Black 2, White 2 are the best Pokemon games. And their price basically reflects that. Not in diverse as hunts as Gen 3 is, honestly. But, like, it's got a lot of legendaries from Gen 4 and Gen 3. And it's got, like, Latios. Like, you got a lot of generation diversity. You have double grass. You have amazing DTQ potential. Black 2, White 2. Is it worth 100, 130, 120, 130 at the end of the day? Maybe not. But, like, you gotta justify that. It's worth trading up for it. It's not worth the complete in box, but you're getting those loose copies. You're getting the other language copies. Oh, yeah, we're gonna talk about that. But the English copies, they're a little much if you want that English experience. It's a little... I don't know if it's perfectly worth it, honestly. But, yeah. I've had a couple throughout the years come in. I have a lot of English Black-White copies, but Black 2 and White 2... I have about 2 a piece, just because I don't like paying over 100 for copies, man. Long term, if I had sacrificed a couple Black White for a Black 2 White 2 copy, like, I feel like it'd be fine. But man, like, they're just expensive. It's unfortunate, but it's something we gotta live with. Probably worth emulating. If you're not trying to get English copies, if you're trying to get English copies, but ultimately it's up to you, the buyer. So, yeah, stuff to hold on to for sure if you've already had them. I regret selling mine like 10 years ago, but yeah, something to look at because we're going to see growth or decline in the next few years for a lot of these DS games. I'm going to imagine for some of these ones that undersold their originals for sure. So, yeah, these definitive versions looking a little crazy right now. Something to keep in mind of. We've passed up the peak shiny hunting. This is 81.92. This is what we deal with as shiny hunters. You're paying $100 average for a cart in English as a US buyer. We're gonna talk about other languages later. I'm gonna keep repeating that. But if you want this authentic English gaming experience on console, you're coughing up cash. Like, it's unfortunate. Trading up is always doable. I've traded cards. I've traded systems. I've made ends meet. Like, you can get these without paying full price, but it's just kind of crazy and unfortunate. So just something to note of. We're about to enter the nice part of the video, though. All of these are really, really reasonable. I could talk about these for a while, but I'm probably gonna keep it short for a lot of them. Pokemon X just barely in the 25 to 50 range. You could get them for 20 probably if you find the right guy, but like all these are 40.96 unfortunately too. But like, and they sold a lot, but like, man, these are nice games to pick up for $30. This is pretty nice. Great hunts. You can do so many DTQ stuff. The starters are super popular. I wish there were more legendaries you can hunt in X and Y, honestly. But yeah, the shiny locks are kind of disgusting in XY too. But yeah, most of it great games. Horde encounters, like Safari encounters, are great. Great for shiny hunting. Full out shiny hunting. 40.96. You gotta do what you gotta do. But yeah, 30 a piece. We love that. Sealed. You can get it for like $10 extra. Pretty great to sit on too. But if you're hunting, probably want to open it. To follow that up, Mega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, about the same price. We love this. This is 10 years ago. With Black White being 13 years ago, it's crazy the price gap. But 10 years ago, 11 years ago, it's crazy that these are still under retail from what they retailed at. We love this. Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire has great hunts, horde encounters, a lot of method hunts on these XY, like fishing and dex nav and stuff. Horde encounters are basically method, honestly. But great legendary hunts, great D-Lock hunts, honestly, if you're tapping into those. Great DTQ potential, great megas you can get too, like underhunted for sure. I might want to do a DTQ at some point. And cheap. They're really, really cheap. Great to pick up. And the tried and true. You can't go wrong. Sun and Moon. Oh my goodness. These things have stayed more solid than like 90% of shiny hunters, for real. Like $20 through and through. We love Sun and Moon. It doesn't matter if they're not the definitive edition. I don't know if Gen 7 hunters are washed. We love this. We absolutely love this from Gen 7. This is great. Yeah. Stay under 25, please. For complete in box too. Like this is great prices. There's so many cool hunts. Gen 7 is amazing. Like this is so justified for Gen 7. I mean it's so nice for Gen 7. I feel like $20 for 20 bucks for these is super fair. The systems are a little expensive that you have to play them on, but yeah, great prices. And then to follow up, obviously Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, you're expecting to pay a little bit more for the definitive edition. But as far as definitive editions go, this is nice. This is really nice as opposed to your normal definitive editions. It's kind of nice. Not too many change-ups. SOS still works the same and everything. Sure, there's more hunt diversity for 40.96 stuff and island scan stuff. But in general, if you're getting a bunch of them, just go Sun and Moon, dude. It's cheaper. I love how 3DS has stayed solid like this. Yeah, big fan of Gen 7, Gen 6. We love that. Moving into the Switch era stuff. Oh, something I didn't touch on too much for 3DS stuff is that I only listed the new Nintendo 3DS XL for stuff that you're capture carding. I talked about it before. Katsukity's like okay. Loopy's just always better, and what he has right now in stock is the new Nintendo 3DS XL. If you're shiny hunting, if you want that capture card experience, you're gonna be paying a little bit more for the service, but ultimately, it's worth it. New Nintendo 3DS XLs are great. They handle great. The controller mod is free if you custom firmware. Like I don't know why you wouldn't. I personally don't because it doesn't work in DS mode, unfortunately. But yeah, custom firmware, great upgrade for them. But most of the other 3DS models are cheaper than the new Nintendo 3DS XL, which is kind of nice. I don't have it included on this playlist because it's not as classic. 3DS games aren't as popular because it's not 8192. So ultimately, DS games are peak, and the DS stuff is what matters most. So I included the DS Lite as well because that's like a pretty classic hunting system, covers a lot of bases for games. But yeah, as far as 3DS systems go, I feel like new Nintendo 3DS XL matters the most. Um, and that's what you're getting if you're cap carding something. It's probably gonna set you 350 back, but that's how it goes. Pretty much all I had to say about the 3DS stuff. Okay, Switch stuff is next. I talked about the systems. Look for them cheaper. But the games, oh my goodness, we are looking good for the games as well. Like, this is great. We'll start off with Let's Go Pikachu Eevee. Pretty great prices right now. I don't expect them to go up too crazy. They sold a ton of them. Not as great as some of the other ones, but at the same time, Let's Go Pikachu Eevee, great hunt methods. I mean, if you're Gen 1er, like, that's everything you need right there. You're set, bro. 4096, you're there. Great to, like, store shinies into, I guess, to look at. Pretty great games. Nothing much to say. I have a couple copies sealed, and I believe I'm just going to be sitting on those. Had to make another row because we got a bunch more 30s coming through. On 30, on 30, on 30. Okay. Next we got Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. Yeah, man, they're cheap. Reasonably so. I would hope that if you buy this, you get your most out of it. Just get Diamond and Pearl. It's 81. I mean, if you want to do 4096, like yeah, sure. There's cool hunts on there. I haven't done enough. I actually haven't gotten a shiny on Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl at all. But maybe there's untapped potential. You do the starter hunt. You're not paying a lot for these games. It's kind of nice. I'm always buying physical copies over these digital copies. End of the day, because you can just switch your file if you want. I don't know why people buy digital copies, low key, but physical's peak for me. But yeah, a lot of these being $30, kind of nice. Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl wasn't too crazy, but there's still cool hunts on there. I wouldn't put it past them. We love shiny hunting Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. To follow that up, we got Sword and Shield, also basically $30. We like that. DLC has a bunch of great hunts, which bumps the cart price up a lot because the DLC cartridges are rarer and more expensive. And you could arguably say worth it because there's only so many of them made, and it just has the DLC that's kind of goated. So yeah, otherwise the additional 30 for the DLC brings it up to 60. That seems pretty fair to me. There's some good hunts on the DLC. All the legendaries, those dens, seems pretty good. So yeah, depending on how you look at it, it could go in either of these. But it's the base game. Most of the hunts is just gonna go right there. And then same for Scarlet Violet. I'll tap into that in a second. But next up, Legends Arceus, peak, bro, absolute peak. About the same as Diamond and Pearl. Fitting, Gen 4, yeah. Legends Arceus has so many good targets you can go after. I wish the legendaries weren't locked. That'd be really cool. But in general, great games to hunt on. On the cheaper end, you can get sealed versions for pretty cheap. We like this. We like this from the Switch games. Hopefully this stays a trend. They didn't even oversell. These are like very reasonably sold. Legends Arceus at least, and I hope this stays for a while. This is nice. I like this for sure. To follow that up, we have Scarlet Violet. A little bit more expensive right now because they came out like 3 years ago. Sure, they're the latest mainline Pokemon game. I guess I haven't talked about it this much yet. These games might go down eventually. Once we're past the Switch 2, I could expect these to go down as like the undesirable games. These games are great for hunting, but ultimately they might go down in the future if they get overshadowed by Gen 10 or Gen 11. But 20, 30 is what, well, I mean, like 20 I would pay for a lot of these games right now. I'm super cool with that. We like that. And that's the bulk of this. That's the bulk of this tier list from what I can tell. Oh, I'm not even like in frame. That's really funny. We like this. We really like this as shiny hunters. Seeing a lot of great games, most of 4096, but at the same time, great games to hunt in under $50 is amazing. And then even still, having a ton of generations covered under 75. Like the peak hunting games, you're getting Gen 5, you're getting Gen 4, not the definitive editions, under $75. That's great. You're covering so many bases. If you're willing to go that extra mile for English games,
you're spending that 100, that 115 for these definitive editions, or like those Gen 3 copies. Unfortunately, they're a little much, but usually worth it for what they're worth, I guess. But what I wanted to follow up with now is the Japanese copies, the European copies, even the Korean copies, except Gen 3, because they don't exist. I would really, really, really recommend tapping into these prices, not more than ever, because they even used to be cheaper, but still, like, they're very, very cheap alternatives. Japanese cartridges they play the same. They're just, as long as you know how to play through them, they're goated. Starting us off with red, blue, yellow. If you don't want to spend like $50 on an English card, you can get the Japanese ones. They're super, super cheap. You can get them in bundles for crazy cheap. It's like $20 for that one. That was wild. That was yesterday. That was this morning actually. Yeah, dub. Seems pretty cheap to me. That's a great alternative. I think for all of these, what I want to highlight is that they are cheaper and basically the same, except European and Korean copies. Most of them, the main takeaway from this different language part is that Japanese is always cheaper. Korean and European games are basically cheaper, and even more cheap in their proxy versions. I'll talk about that later. But Japanese games are easy to get, cheap, and basically the same thing. So tap into Japanese for real. I'm not going to be placing these on the tier list. I just wanted to share my 2 cents about how cheap they are. Not going to compare to the English games, because I guess if you want to like be elitist and say that they're not the same. Like in general, these Japanese games are really, you got to tap in, dude. They're so much nicer. Rebelio, looking at it, like these are $5, $10 copies. It fluctuates a lot, but in general, or red, blue, green, sorry, not yellow, they're worth tapping into, a lot cheaper for sure. To follow that up, we got gold, silver, crystal, in Japanese, $10, man, like 10, $15 on 15 on the expensive side. You can get bundles of these for crazy cheap on eBay. I don't know why Japanese games are hunting on more. English is great. If you like don't remember how to play the game in Japanese, that's totally valid. But ultimately, they're always cheaper. I'm hammering these home though. These definitive editions, dude. Crystal, $30, $35. Really, really worth it. 5 times, like a fifth of the price. We love these. I really hope this becomes a norm. Japanese games are just that much better. To follow that up, we got Gen 3 cartridges. And I feel like a lot of the Gen 3 diehards have already figured this out. They're so much cheaper, bro. $30 for these. That's crazy. That's like half, like maybe a third of what you would expect to pay for an English card. But like the cartridges are beautiful. All the games play basically the same. If you get your batteries in, you're cooking, dude. That's you're good. You're golden. Like gorgeous carts. We love that. And then what hammers it home for me is Emerald being 50, around 50, 60, 40, around that area for Japanese. It is a quarter as cheap, bro, for that. Basically the same hunts. A gorgeous cartridge. Most of them are in better condition than these English variants, and it's just like it's so much cheaper. If I cared about Gen 3 more, I would absolutely go the Japanese route. I love these. I hope more people acknowledge how good these are. Very much cheaper, and it would bring that Emerald down all the way to the 50 range. Like it's just so much nicer. To follow up that Gen 3 goodness, we got Firered leafgreen. Oh my god. It's not as crazy cheap as like it's like Firered leafgreen. I don't know why you would ever buy English when Japanese is $30, $35, $40. Doesn't matter. Half the price, a third of the price. It's goated. Tap into Japanese. It is the same thing. If you know how to read Japanese, that's amazing. If you remember how to play it in English, good for you. Get the Japanese. If you prefer English, can I have some money? Because it seems like you got some, personally. What a great rant this is becoming. After Gen 3, we got Gen 4. Dude, the
the Diamond and Pearl copies, they're so cheap, bro. It's like $20, like reasonably. It's some of them on the higher end are matching the English prices, but like if you just look on eBay, you find the right bundle for loose copies, you're getting very, very cheap copies. Probably like $10 to $15 loose. These are really, really nice. I would hope that you tap into these if you're doing Gen 4. And to follow that up, we got platinum copies at like... Dude, the platinum copies are so nice. Less than $30 for loose Japanese platinum copies. Less than $50 for complete in box ones. And it looks... Yeah, man, Platinum's goated. I really hope people start tapping into these Japanese definitive editions more because they are very, very much worth it. And they play the same as long as you remember how to play them. So that's my 2 cents about that. And then to follow it up, this is what I kind of care about. The Japanese Gen 5 cartridges. If you're hunting peak, you're hunting Japanese, bro. $15 to $20 reasonably, very reasonably for Japanese cartridges for black and white is so good. It's literally it's a quarter of the price. Like, this is amazing. A seventh of the price. Like, I would hope that this sticks around for a while. Like, I know people haven't fully tapped into Japanese, but like it's just so much. It's so much worth hunting. It's so good, dude. If you came here to hear a rant, if you came here for a rant, like this is what you're getting, bro. I love how good Japanese prices are. On the really, really important side are the black 2 and white 2 copies being a fifth of their prices. More like a quarter of their prices for English for Japanese. I don't know why you would buy English when you can just get these much, much cheaper versions. They play the same. I don't understand. I'm not buying. I'm probably, unless it's like a great deal, I'm always going towards Japanese if I'm getting into one of these games. Like, it used to be, I got these for like $25 a piece like a couple years ago. Now they're $30. That's such a consistent market. That's like basically the same. We love that. So like outclassing it, bumping it up like so much just for the Japanese copy is great. That's my 2 cents about that. And that basically concludes the comparison for all of the Japanese games I wanted to do. Everything else is $40.96 and basically the same price, if not a little bit more expensive from fees. But yeah, for the $81.92 games, Japanese is the way to go. Except for like Diamond and Pearl, maybe. It's like that's like the cheaper one, right? But outside of Japanese games, I personally wanted to talk about European and Korean games for a little bit. So, Japanese, you're sending it through eBay. There's US sellers. There's Japanese people willing to pay shipping. For them, it's like cheaper or whatever. It's fine. So you're getting English, Japanese pretty reasonably. For European and Korean copies, there's different ways you can go about it. You can go on eBay. You're definitely getting them cheaper than English for most of them. Maybe Korean's on the higher side, just because it's less available. I got mine on eBay for like a little bit more than what the English ones are going for, and that's kind of my bad. I didn't know about proxy services. To follow that up, eBay, it's going to be a little bit more because of shipping and whatever, and it's just like less available. But proxy services, dude, like if you're planning on getting a lot of European, Korean copies, even just a little, you can definitely use proxy services and it will make stuff a lot easier. Loose copies for sure. Complete in box stuff, maybe it'll cost a little bit more for shipping, but if you're already getting the complete in box for a couple, it's probably worth it. For perspective, I paid $57 for a copy of Korean Black altogether through a proxy service delivered Korea. I didn't have as much luck with the European versions. I think shipping was a lot more, and I guess European versions are like about the same prices as Korean, but just like a little bit less consistent. I was using like Wallapop to get my Spanish copies, but the proxy service I used for that was like, it was pretty solid. Like if you got the money, if you're willing to go that extra mile for these European copies, they will end up cheaper, especially in bulk, and compared to the English prices. So if you're thinking European, you want to play some Spanish game, you want to play some French, German. Basically, for most of them, it's French, German, Italian, and Spanish for European copies. And then for Korean, for most of them except Gen 3, And I think Gen 1 and 2 copies are insane. I probably wouldn't buy those. Crazy expensive. But in general, Korean games for Gen 5 are pretty nice, so I would recommend tapping into those. Past that, if you need help trying to figure out a proxy service, there's probably YouTube tutorials, but those are the ones that I used, Colis Expat and the Delivered Korea for the European and Korean games respectively. So with all that said, me personally as a shiny hunter, the main thing I do, I go and I look at Facebook Marketplace for these deals. Like, I don't really need to increase my collection anymore, but if I was starting out, I would look on Facebook Marketplace. I would look for stuff maybe that's at or below market, and I lowball. I gave them 50. I gave them 60%, maybe 65 if I'm feeling crazy. Maybe a little bit more for Gen 5 copies just because that's my favoritism. But like, people, if you're nice, you say you pick up the same day, you can get these copies for discounted prices. It's definitely worth asking. So sometimes it'll hit, usually it won't. But you know, sometimes you can get these games. This is just me as a like Midwest U.S. Inner city listings. Like, it's reasonable that you would get these for like pretty great prices. Especially the Switches now. Like, people are gonna be getting rid of those, so keep your eyes peeled. But that's the first thing I would recommend doing if you're trying to get these games. The next thing is trading. It's not the card game. Obviously, these cartridges are worth a lot more. But in general, if you know people in the shiny hunting community, just collecting in general, that are willing to go value for you, or maybe like your stuff at 90% for their stuff, it's definitely worth it to look out for these things that are becoming increasingly expensive. If you have like a 3DS that you don't play, but you want to get a game that's worth like a lot, it might be worth trading in or something. Usually those game stores might rip you off or like not give you full value for stuff. But if you know other shiny hunters, maybe like some people value Gen 5 more than you do or Gen 3 more than you do, that would be willing to go value for value. It's just something to keep in mind. Trading is always an option. But then overseas, like different language copies gets a little weird. Japanese, you'd probably just buy straight up off of eBay. But then Korean copies, not easy to trade. European copies, not easy to trade for international stuff. If you're both willing to pay like $15-20 on both sides, it might be worth it. Like, if you're crazy about it, then that might be worth it, I guess. But in general, trading within the US, sometimes pretty worth it. And yeah, like I said, if you're not going to be trading, those proxy services for some of those European, Korean games are super worth it. Like I was saying, cards, systems, other cartridges, all great stuff you can trade. But in general, Nintendo's Nintendo. If you trade most Nintendo stuff will appreciate, and you're always pretty safe trading most Nintendo stuff, like mainline Nintendo stuff, for Pokemon games, I would say. Outside of all that was most of what I wanted to talk about. We're at an hour and like 20 minutes on the recording. We're going to chop that down. If you have questions, leave them in the comments or tag me on Twitter. If you want to throw out a trade in the comments, go for it, bro. I would look to try and make trades with trusted people, or people that you know wouldn't rip you off for trades, I guess, if you're shipping. Even in person, I would try and keep it with people you know. Key takeaways for shiny hunters is be on the lookout for Switches, Switch Lites, and Switch OLEDs, because people are going to want to be upgrading. Switch games and 3DS games stay solid. They will usually be $20 to $30 because they're great and oversold, and people don't sell them for too much. DS games are insane in English, except for Diamond Pearl. Black White are under 100. But in general, for DS games, for GBA games, tap into those Japanese versions. That's the main. I feel like that's the main audience. So yeah, Japanese games are an amazing alternative. European and Korean games are like, if Japanese to English is a spectrum of price, European and Korean games are hitting that sweet spot in the middle. So look into those proxy services. Make those trades if you're feeling comfortable. It's usually pretty worth it if you're bulk ordering to do a proxy. And if you're not, just do it on eBay. It's probably fine. Game Boy Color, Game Boy, those games stay solid. The Japanese copies are a little bit cheaper, especially for Crystal. But that's you're cool just buying those English ones straight up. Cool to play. And then for systems, yeah, like I was saying, Nintendo Switch is something to look out for in the next few months. And as far as capture card goes, capture card value right now is great. 200 for a pre-installed loopy board is amazing right now. They're in stock if you want to send it in. 150 is what you're probably expecting to pay. Maybe shipping comes like 170. So it might be worth it to just buy prepaid ones on eBay. Like, great to think about. For 3DSs, if you're doing loopy, probably send it in. It's gonna be like 350. Do not buy off of eBay. Oh my god, it's like double the price. It's like a price and a half. Is it convenient? Yes. Would I sell mine to you for $450 right now? Easily. Take it. $450. Yes. Because I could easily flip that on the double. It's $200 for the service, and you're paying like, I'm looking for like $175 on a system. You can do that on an LL. $450, $500. $450 to $500 is probably a reasonable buy price on eBay, honestly, considering time and everything. But anything past 500 is not insane for those new 3DS XL capture cards. And then in general for shiny hunting, you gotta do what you gotta do. Original systems can be expensive. Capture card systems are very expensive, over 100 easily. Systems like the Wii and GameCube they're under 100 sometimes, but decking them out and just getting everything crispy and nice and playing, getting the Game Boy player and everything can get pretty pricey. So in general, you got to do what you got to do. Emulators are free and super available, like so much cheaper, and saves you so much time on shipping and everything. But if you want that extra experience, like I said, you're gonna have to cough up some cash. Hopefully this like gives you some perspective onto market stuff. I guess over time the price charting kind of helps, but in general price charting is a little weird. Emulators are, but I really hope that it gets more widely accepted. Emulators are great and a great alternative. That was about all I had. Oh, I guess on a small note, something for a setup that's kind of cool right now is that Pokemon regional playmats are like $10, $15, $20 each, and they're really, really cool and pretty. Great addition to the hunting setup. As you can see, it's nice for the systems too. They don't move too much. Like if you're hunting, they don't like wobble, especially with the pads. So those are cool. If I think of anything else, I'll put it in the comments. Otherwise, correct me in the comments. Thank you for watching.